Call the general meeting of the governing board to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, 4 board members are here. Ann O'Brien is here telephonically. Ann, are you there? Okay, great. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Mr. President, I'd make a motion that we adopt the agenda with one correction, and that would be to move item 7B to between 5A and 6, so we could make it 5B.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, awards in Monica. We'll sit here for a minute.
You have us trained.
There's a video.
Dave, do you have the PowerPoint? Okay. Good evening, President Gregoire, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Weitenheimer, and special guests. Deer Valley Unified School District regularly recognizes students, staff, and community members who exemplify strong character and courage with the Community of Character and Courage Honor. Tonight, we recognize the character traits of perseverance, positive attitude, and courage in J.C. Herr, who was recently promoted from Diamond Canyon School, where she was a member of the 7th and 8th grade basketball team.
JC's always known from the get-go because her challenges started at birth. She was born having had a stroke in utero, or you could call it a cerebral palsy event.
It is much harder for JC to do anything that any typical kid can do. She's usually only half her body, and she just has to work harder for everything she does.
When JC was little, she didn't want to wear a brace. It was a hard plastic thing. I don't blame her.
Well, in 6th grade, she had a major surgery. She was really in pain afterwards, and she was a real trooper getting back from that surgery.
But ever since that last surgery, and a lot of help from physical therapists, and included from Diamond Canyon, and a lot of encouragement from a school that has taken her on, and she's no different. So she just wears that thing with pride and doesn't, it helps her. So she sees it as a help now and doesn't worry about it.
I don't care what people think.
We're blessed with a very strong-willed little girl, and that strong will is really paid off in these areas, and that she just is willing to do anything that she puts her mind to and anything that she enjoys. She really puts her all into it. So.
In 7th grade, she decided she wanted to try out for the basketball team.
I want to try out for the basketball team because I want to work hard and try my best every day.
So when JC told us she wanted to try out for the basketball team, I initially thought we should probably go for manager or something, just being unsure how she would take it if she didn't make the team.
She had to try out with all the other kids. She did not get any special consideration. They had 2 days of tryouts. One of the days of tryouts was actually during our IEP meeting we were having for her. So we were all a little nervous during the IEP meeting to see how it was going.
We were picking her up from the last cuts, the last tryouts. We were all in the car, and I think Heather and I were really tightly knit. We were very anxious, and we see her come out, and she hops to the back seat like no big deal, and we just couldn't really wait for the moment to just find out which way it went.
My coaches tell me that I made the team, and I felt really happy.
And we burst out. I think we might have tried to run around the car a little bit, and we certainly had celebration within our family that evening.
The very first time she made a basket in a game, we know right where we were sitting, and I happened to be videotaping. I went up to the gal who was defending her after the game and said, kind of thank you so much. She just had a little hesitation. She went up to JC and just stood there with her arm up, didn't get right up in her face. And JC, poop, shot it right over and it went in. And she said, hey, I was just playing defense, but she totally got it and also recognized she was just playing defense on another teammate.
So I think there's been plenty of instances where JC has been an inspiration. We've had parents from the other team, girls, players from the other team come up and just say, how much they appreciate playing or competing or watching and cheering against JC. Refs come up and just say, hey, great job, great work out there. It's fun to watch you play.
She would not have been able to try out for the basketball team if she had not worn the brace. She would not have been able to run if she didn't wear it. And every time she does it, every time she goes out on the court, she's just a walking advertisement for being who you are.
I think I'm courageous because I can help people.
Well, we are exceptionally proud of JC, and it's more of who she is as a young woman and the purpose that she has and who she's becoming as a young woman. And basketball is just a small part of it, and it's really, it's the life lessons and the things that she learns through her experience on the team and through getting to play the game of basketball that we get to really celebrate with her.
Good shot.
Congratulations to our Community of Character and Courage honoree, J.C. Herr. And we invite her family up for the photo.
Okay, that's a short award ceremony. Usually we have more, but it's summertime. So let's move on to item 7B, which we moved up on the agenda. Approve the 2016-17 Deer Valley Education Foundation Memorandum of Understanding. Mr. Bear.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the 2016-17 Deer Valley Education Foundation, or DVEF, Memorandum of Understanding.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, before we vote, we have a public who wants to speak. And so can somebody, do we have the, honestly, I don't think, Charlie, we need this. You can, let's just come, you can
Charlie,
speak.
don't say anything mean. We're good.
Yeah.
And
You're
we can't answer you.
You're a veteran at the podium. You know the rules.
President Gregoire, members of the governing board, Dr. Weitenheimer, distinguished members of the administration, I see you too, noble educators in the, in the audience, friends and family, thank you for what you're doing here tonight. Each year, the Deer Valley Education Foundation raises funds for educational enrichment programs for the students and teachers of the Deer Valley School District. Because of programs we fund, students are presented with science challenges, math projects, reading competitions. Doors are open to music appreciation, art is showcased, and history is brought alive for thousands of students in the Deer Valley schools. Future astronauts and pilots attend space camp through our scholarships, and high schoolers interested in the healthcare field are now offered dual enrollment scholarships. We also have health programs, including wellness education, and we always honor our teachers and nurses each year. We do what we can to raise the standards of education within our community to support programs that strengthen our children's educational experience, not only by supporting their academic adventure, but helping to build their character. Our goal is to meet the needs of every child in every school. And so I just wanted to personally come here and thank you for your support. I've been very honored to be working with this foundation for now 24 years, and I've worked with 4 superintendents and many, many members of the governing board, and I know how hard you all work to make this a great, great school district, so thank you very much for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you. Okay, we have any other comments? None?
Just a thank you for all that they do.
Yeah, I think the respect is mutual, and the things you do for us outweigh what we can do for you. So with that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. It's approved. Okay, we will go back to our governing board reports. We'll start with you, Mrs. Ordway.
Thank you. We did attend, the 3 of us, Ms. Fisher, Ms. O'Brien, and myself, and about 700-800 other people, the Equity Conference and Advocacy Conference in Washington, D.C. Part of what was wonderful about that is that amongst national districts, Deer Valley is on track for what we need to do. And whatever it is that we're not, we are a district of continuous improvement, so you know that whatever the suggestions that are based in fact and information, we're going to go down those paths. So it was a nice thing to be able to talk to people from districts such as New Jersey, where they're funded fully and have not embarked yet on PBIS or MTSS. It's just a nice validation to know that the hard work and we're on the right track. Another part of the conference was being able to actually meet our congressmen, and I don't know if, did you meet with congresswomen or just? Yeah. That was nice, to be able to be in their office in Washington, D.C. and bring up the things that we need from them, as they did at the time, let us know that they would be more than happy to help us. So we have a Carl Perkins grant that is being brought up to be passed, and that helps us with our CTE. It's nice to get it from the inside at their place, so to speak. I've also had the opportunity to spend a couple of days with our Science Rocks, robotics, and I did get a chance to go to the FBI lab, which was kind of awesome. I also have a request, and I don't know if this is for a study session or just to think on how we want to do this, but I would like for our board to figure out a process for items that we've had on the agenda as a preview or new business that we're not going to pass, and then we have our 2 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever the time is in between, where there is such great thoughts from board members to change whatever the recommendation would be from that preview, that we're only have the time at the next board meeting to discuss it, because I feel it gets very rushed that way. So say that you were wanting to, we have the preview on red school buildings. And we've always had red school buildings. And in between that week and the 2 weeks after that, all of a sudden, we don't want to do that at all, so we're just going to bring that up at the meeting where we would approve it or disapprove it. So to me, something that's such a great change in our organization and what we're doing, we should come up with a process so we don't have to have that kind of a lengthy conversation, which does then not have stakeholders involved, parents involved. So we did that with a budget. We had a study session. We had the special meeting afterwards. We departed from our process totally. For the NST, they had to go meet. So I just think that we need to think of a way to make sure that we have the opportunity to really research and discuss things without having the it shoved really quickly down. That's all.
Okay, we'll have to talk more about that because I want to completely understand what you're saying. So
That's
we'll
okay.
have that conversation. So, Mrs. Fisher.
I'm not really comfortable with 1, 2, 3 eyes on me. But I would like to thank Mr. Gregoire for using his inside voice, and for Dr. V for using his listening ears, and for the 3 young ladies there in the second row who were sitting facing front so attentively. I just figured we're halfway through summer, and at least some of you are missing teacher speak. So I thought I would start with that, just so that you don't feel so lonely. There's 1 more month, and teachers will be back, and then they can do it right. We did attend the Equity and Advocacy Conferences in Washington. At the Equity Conference, we were provided a lot of information about how to begin looking at equity and how we are doing as a district. They provided us a really neat website that shows us our data. When I looked at our data, I was actually a little surprised. If you look at it one direction, it shows we're doing really well, but when you dig deep into the data, it shows that we are in fact disproportionately disciplining boys. It also shows that there was a disproportionate ratio when we disciplined boys of color, which was very odd to me. And then you turn it around and it's even a little more odd that we disproportionately expel white kids, exclusively white boys. So it was, the data was very interesting to look at, and it got me thinking that we really need to make an effort to look at what the data means and look at and make sure that our policies and our procedures and our processes are such that it is creating an equity or you know, the difference between equity and equality is that we're giving everybody the opportunity, and we need to know that that we don't have things in process that are causing us to possibly unintentionally treat a student differently based on their color or their gender, or there was some of the special education that was also very disproportionately overly disciplined. So I would really just like for us to start a talk, you know, start a dialogue as a board with administration with what this data means. They're going to be coming out with new data. The data is from, I think, 2011, but they're going to be coming out with data from 2014 at the website, and I believe Ms. O'Brien, Ms. Ordway, and I all have the link. I'm sure the district has the link as well. The advocacy conference was very beneficial as well. With 3 of us in attendance, I'm not going to say too much, but it was wonderful to meet with other school board members from across the nation, seeing how they do, insights with some of the AZ boards that were there, and then meeting with our representatives. I was a little disappointed you cannot take pictures in the chambers, because you go through security point 1, they take away everything that has a battery. Security point 2, they took my shoes, because I had 2 pairs with me. Apparently you can't have 2 pairs of shoes. I think they think we might throw them, I'm not sure. So they took those. It was just a little disappointed that you can't take pictures in the chamber. One thing that I did want to mention, and this is for all board members and for all of you, is you don't have to be a board member and you don't have to go to Washington to get in touch with your representatives. You can email them, you can call them, you can contact their office, and express to them how important education is. You know, if they're old, tell them, do you want a good doctor in the future or maybe an uneducated one? I don't know, just something, but let them know how important education is. And the funding. It's wonderful that they're reauthorizing Perkins. It's wonderful that they're going to reauthorize all of the different things that are going before, but there's not a funding source attached to them. That's done in a different committee. So we need to know that funding needs to go with it. I would like to thank Dr. Smith for uploading the raw data from the parent survey to VIBE. I know we're going to receive a wonderful presentation, and I'm looking forward to those results, but I wanted to read the comments, and I did. I know there's always a group that will use a survey to push agendas or to take pot shots at individuals, and that's done in every single survey, no matter who's doing it, no matter what's happening. But I found that if you look, simply move past those, because you can kind of tell where they are, and you look at the overall comments, there's a common theme throughout that can provide a path to progress. There is a continuous misconception that the board's primary function is to be a figurehead ready for a photo op, or, and there was a couple of them with how overpaid we are, which is kind of funny because we don't get paid anything, but it's there. I would like to request that the board consider having a mini study session prior to every board meeting. Or every other board meeting or something. I mean, our meetings aren't until 7. Other boards meet prior to and actually discuss things. I'm a little surprised at Ms. Ordway's comment, because it's kind of in line with what I'm thinking. Is we come up here, we rush, we do get our packet on Friday, we get our information ahead of time, but how many questions can you really ask in that time? And there's so much that we don't know that if we can't ask, we don't know. And that would also give the public a chance to see what your board is really supposed to be. It's wonderful when we have the opportunity to go to campuses. We love seeing the kids. We love the graduations. But we were not elected to be a figurehead playing with kids. We were elected to make responsible, well thought out decisions for a district. And I think now that we're recording, even the parents who can't be here, if we have mini study sessions, they can see what we're doing, and they can contact us and give us their opinion. They can call us up, and the public needs to know that they can send an email that, hey, you know what, I watched the last board meeting, and I think what you said was great. I watched the last board meeting, I think what you said was, you know, a bunch of mohawka. It's not what we need as parents. But they need that option to be able to talk to us. But to do that, they need to know what we've read, and we make this little mini decision up here, and they're left not knowing what we were deciding even on. Let's see what else I have in my notes. I think our initial topics can come straight from the survey. There were 3 things that I saw that were really concerning. One is a significant concern over drugs in our campuses. The second is bullying, which we've known that those are issues. And then the final one, of course, is the half days, which that's such a mixed bag. It's going to take a lot of discussion. To take a comment from the conference, I want us to operate as a school board, B-O-A-R-D, versus school board, B-O-R-E-D, because it's about time we start really just putting our kids first and putting our work first. And that's my comments.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fisher. Mrs. O'Brien, do you have anything? Yep, we're here. Okay, yeah, it's already in the works, so thank you, Mrs. O'Brien. Mr. Bear.
No report this evening, Mr. President.
And I don't have a report either, except for enjoying summer, like hopefully most of you are. So I'll pass it on to Dr. Weitenheimer.
And I will make that 3 in a row and ask that we have an opportunity to look at some state testing results with curriculum instruction and assessment, and Dr. Gail Galligan and Dr. Scott Smith and Mary Beth Highland.
Good evening, President Gregoire, members of the board, Dr. Weitenheimer, and distinguished guests. Dr. Scott Smith and Mrs. Mary Beth Highland, both from our Data Analysis Department, and I will share information related to the 2016 AZ Merit, AIM Science, and Azella results, as well as our next steps for the upcoming school year. You may have read from various news reports about the 2016 AZ Merit results being unembargoed yesterday. We are pleased to report that DVUSD experienced increased student proficiency in both ELA and math as measured by AZ Merit, and widened our proficiency in relation to the state. AIM Science results remain fairly stable across the 3 grades tested, and Azella scores continue to be at or above the state proficiency levels. AZ Merit now has 2 years of results, which will help us understand student performance and learning as it relates to AZ CCRS. AIM Science and Azella have ongoing trend data that we use to plan for professional learning and program support. As a reminder, once again, the 2016 state assessment scores are not tied to student grades, a graduation requirement, or a school and district accountability label. However, this upcoming next spring, AZ Merit scores and possibly AIM Science and Azella reclassifications will be part of the new state accountability system, which has not yet been approved by the State Board of Education.
Excuse me, President Gregoire, members of the Governing Board. I'm going to with the AZ Merit results. As you know, AZ Merit tests are given to all students in grades 3 to 11 in math and English language arts. This year, all tests were administered with a computer-based platform here in the district throughout the month of April. The information being presented tonight is being shared, as Dr. Gowden said, for the very first time, as these results were just unembargoed yesterday. I'm going to start with several little charts here, and we'll spend as much time on them as you need to kind of digest them real quickly. This is the overall math proficiency for 2015 and then 2016. 2016 in the green bars for every 3 through 8 grade school that has 3 through 8 grades, and then you can see the 2 averages year over year. The red bar being from 2015 and the purple from 2016. That's approximately a 6% improvement overall in overall proficiency for math across the district. I'll show you a chart in just a minute that shows you the change for each school, so you don't need to digest it all here, but you can kind of see it with comparing the green bars to the blue bars. This is the same chart for overall proficiency for ELA, and exact same layout. And again, you can see the change as average for the district year over year. That's approximately a 9% improvement, percentage point improvement as we move from 2015 to 2016. And this is the chart I promised you just a minute ago. These 2 charts take the charts I just presented for both math and ELA, and they show the actual change year over year for every school. And I like this chart a little bit better because things start to pop out to you. Where is dramatic change really happening, and where are opportunities potentially happening? You can see that for the math scores, most of the schools had improvement, and all but 4. And you can see for ELA, all but 1 of the schools had improvement year over year, and some of them fairly dramatic. I'll talk about some of those highlights as we move on through the presentation. So that's all of our K-6, K-8, and middle schools results by school. And here are our high school results. This is the exact same layout as we just did for the 3-8 grade. These are for English language arts 9, 10, and 11, and Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. Overall proficiency in math and ELA. And as you can see, every school saw some increase across the board. That increase in math is approximately 3% year over year, and that increase in ELA is approximately 4% year over year. And here's the actual change that you can see for each school in terms of their proficiency as we move from 2015 to 2016. A little more, you can see a kind of more intense here on these charts. Traditionally, in this report year over year, I have now showed you a chart that compares Deer Valley to the rest of the state and to Maricopa County, and then I also show you charts that show you how we compare to some of our peer district. Much of that data is not yet available. We are able to show you how we compare to the rest of the state just based off of news articles that have publicized the state rates by grade level. So you can see Deer Valley here in the red bars continues to perform much higher than the state, and in a minute I'll show you that most of those gaps are even increasing. I do not have data on Maricopa County yet. I do not have data on any of our peer districts yet. We kind of reached out to see if we could get some. Mr. Migliorino helped me kind of reach out, and we haven't had enough response to really pull that together. We do expect to get those files in late August where we'll be able to compare to other ELAs and to other actual schools. So here are the math passing rates, Deer Valley versus the state of Arizona, and here are the ELA passing rates, Deer Valley versus the state of Arizona. And really what we need to get to are these charts. These are the change year over year. Again, Arizona in blue, Deer Valley in red. So you can, as you know, very well know, we outperformed the rest of the state in the first iteration of AZ Merit, and we continue to do so in 2016 with all but two of those gaps increasing. We see the gap for 7th grade math and Algebra 2 as opportunities where that, although we're outperforming the rest of the state, that gap has decreased compared to the rest of the state. Here's the same chart for English Language Arts, and you can see that Deer Valley, again in red, has improved at a higher rate than the rest of the state across every grade level. So all of those gaps are widening for English Language Arts. And it's just a little more information on some of the reports that are out there or will soon be out there. Last year I developed 3 sets of reports that you see up there and put them on the portal. That 2016 Arizona AZ Merit results charts are actually on the portal now. You and any teacher or any principal or any employee can go and access those charts. That's a little report that allows some interaction where you can put in your school and you compare your school year over year, or you can compare your school to other schools or to types of schools, say all K-8s or all K-6s, etc. The mastery level chart shows the mastery certain standards and dimensions for AZ Merit, and the writing point charts the same thing for the writing dimensions. Those will be available soon, probably by the end of the week. And then, as mentioned earlier, these other files that we historically have gotten, we have not been posted yet, but we do expect to get state, county, and LEA data by the end of August, and then we'll develop the roster files in that same time period. So those will all be available to all schools. Some of the observations, at least that I had as I looked through this data that kind of popped out to me, you saw 32 of the schools improved their math proficiency rates, and 35 of them improved their ELA proficiency rates. That's out of 37 schools. I did not include Sonora Foothills because I couldn't tell if they improved or not because they didn't take the test in 2015. So make that denominator 37 if you want to do a ratio there. All 9 grade level ELA assessments widened the gap over the state, and 7 of the 9 math assessments did the same. And some really nice results. We saw Esperanza and Mirage had the highest percentage point increase of all our schools. Both of them improved their math proficiency rate by 20%. And Sunrise, Esperanza, and Park Meadows improved their ELA results by 18, 17, and 16 percentage points respectively, which was also the highest across the district. A couple more observations here. As I looked at this previous chart where I looked at Esperanza, Mirage, Sunrise, Park Meadows, I got interested, well, what's going on overall with Title I schools? So I looked at the overall rate for Title I schools. I'm going to guide you towards the right-hand chart with just the blue bars. And you can see Title I math versus non-Title I math, and then the 4th column over Title I ELA versus non-Title I ELA. I'm going to interpret that. I think the right way to interpret that is that Title I schools are closing the gap with some of those non-Title I schools, which is a great result for us as a district. And finally, because of the work that we put in with 6th grade math this year, I want to point this out, and Dr. Gallagher may speak to this a little bit later. This is just proficiency level for all of the tests across the district, so overall across the district. And I would just point out the 6th grade math proficiency improved by 18 percentage points. And again, you see the opportunity that I mentioned a little bit earlier for 8th grade math and Algebra 2.
Moving on to AIM Science results. The AIM Science tests were administered in April. This was a paper and pencil test, not a computer-based test, and it was given to all students in grades 4, 8, and 9. This test measures student proficiency of the Arizona Academic Content Standards in science. As Dr. Galligan stated earlier, AIM Science results were fairly stable year over year at Deer Valley, and we're going to take a look now at school results at each grade level. This chart represents the 2015 and 16 overall proficiency at each school, as well as district overall proficiency indicated by the horizontal lines. This is showing grade 4, and the overall percent of students scoring proficient did not change at 78% from 2015 to 2016. 6 schools, though, have over 90% of their 4th graders reaching proficiency. We've got West Wing and Sierra Verde at 91%, Legend Springs and Park Meadows at 92%, Stetson Hills at 95%, and Diamond Canyon had 97% of their 4th graders reaching proficiency. This chart represents the change in overall proficiency at each school, similar to the charts that Dr. Smith showed before, as well as the change in overall district proficiency. It's important to note in charts like this that we are looking at grade level change from year to year. We are not looking at cohort change in these charts. So in other words, different students are tested each year, so we're not looking at growth rates from a student level perspective. West Wing experienced a 9% increase, while Desert Mountain experienced a 13% increase in grade 4 proficiency rates. We have to look and see what's being done at these schools and grades in order to support our schools which are experiencing lower performance or perhaps a drop in proficiency. In grade 8, we once again can note that overall district proficiency remained fairly constant. It was just a 1.5% increase, with 79% of district 8th graders obtaining proficiency. 2 schools have over 90% of their students passing in 8th grade, Sunset Ridge at 92%, and Diamond Canyon has 96% of their 8th graders that have reached proficiency. Paseo Hills, Terramar, West Wing, and Sierra Verde experienced an increase of 6 to 9% in grade 8 year over year. Desert Mountain had 11% more of its 8th graders reach proficiency in 2016 as compared to 2015. In grade 9, the overall district proficiency was flat year over year, with 53% of high school students reaching that mark. This data does follow the same trend across the state, as high school students just do not tend to perform as well on AIMS science test as compared to grade 4 and grade 8. That being said, Boulder Creek continues to be our top performing high school, with 63% of its students that reach proficiency in AIMS science. Each of our high schools experienced less than a 5% change, either positive or negative, when it came to AIMS science proficiency. At this point, we don't anticipate that AIMS science performance will be included in future accountability, but we do think that AIMS science participation will be in that accountability framework. Regardless, we need to analyze these results to determine what's working well for our students and how better we can support students in underperforming schools. Transitioning to AZELA results. AZELA is the Arizona English Language Learner Assessment, and it's standard-based assessment that meets state and federal requirements. It's used to test that English language proficiency, and it has both student placement and reassessment purposes. In the following slides, we're going to use data from spring 2016 reassessment, and it's going to include a bunch of different elements. We've got the total number of students that were tested, the number of students that reached proficiency or, say, exited out of the program, the school's proficiency percentage, and then the growth of students based on a prior result. For the ease of representing this, because it gets a little hairy when you put all schools on one slide, we have a K-6, a K-8, and then a middle school and high school level slide. Just note that only 628 students took the Azella reassessment in the spring. So we're talking about less than 2% of the population of the district. Just keep that in mind. So in this chart, we're going to look at K6. The green bar indicates the total number of students assessed. The blue bar represents the total number of students that scored proficient and will now exit out. That's that reclassification. The yellow bar shows the total number of students that increased a proficiency level or grew since their last test. And finally, the red dots indicate the percent of students reaching proficiency at that particular school. And that's going to utilize the secondary axis on the right-hand side for percent proficient. It's important to include student counts in this type of data. Simply reporting percentages is not going to tell us the varying amount of ELL students at a particular campus. So at a K6 level, we can see that Constitution assessed the largest number of students. They assessed over 120 kids. 70 of those students showed positive growth, with 40 students, or 33% of them, obtaining proficiency in the EL program. At a K8 level, we can see that Paseo Hills assessed the largest number of students. They assessed 64 total kiddos. 43% of those students showed positive growth, and 27 students, or 42%, obtained proficiency and exit that EL program. With the exception of Sierra Verde at 12 students, all other K8 schools assess less than 10 students on that 2016 Azella assessment. Just so you are aware, the schools also received individual results as well as this analysis in tabular form from our EL coordinator. Middle schools and high school levels do not experience the number of students receiving EL services as our K6 and K8 schools. Barry Goldwater High School assessed a total number of 22 kids. 17 of those students showed positive growth, with 11 of them, or 50%, obtaining proficiency and exiting the EL program. I believe with the new reclassification rate, the state average is about 33%. So on all accounts, we are doing better than the state in terms of reclassification rates. How the Azella data will be used in subsequent state accountability is still being determined, but we do anticipate that proficiency levels will be included in that calculation. This is a little bit new to us, the way that we are analyzing this data. Scott and myself, as well as the EL department, worked with these results to determine best how to represent them, and we felt it was important to have that yellow bar and show growth of our students. It's not just about the ones that exit, but are we moving them towards proficiency? So we'll continue to analyze these results in this manner in the future.
President Gregoire, members of the board, Dr. Weitenheimer. With the results from our state assessments, we have identified preliminary next steps to continue to ensure students are prepared for college and careers after graduating from Deer Valley. For ELA and math, we will continue to provide professional development to effectively teach to the AZCCRS learning goals. This includes scaffolding to accommodate the significant content and course correction necessary with more rigorous standards, especially in light of our experience with the potential of the Arizona College and Career standards over the past 2 years. As a district, we will continue to improve the support system for our teachers, empowering them to adjust to the challenges of helping students reach the higher bar set by the AZCCRS. This support can be seen in the great growth with 6th grade math that Scott talked about, where we targeted professional learning for all math teachers. That focus led to a significant gain in math proficiency from last school year to this school year, as showcased by the greatest growth and widest gap over the state rate. In addition, 27 of the 28 K6 and K8 schools showed increases in 6th grade math ranging anywhere from 1% to 41%. No school decreased in proficiency. The one school that did not show grade level growth did show cohort growth and remained stable from the previous year. Targeted PD provided the support 6th grade math teachers needed to better understand the progression of the Arizona College and Career standards. PD was designed to ensure coherence of instruction, which includes the use of manipulatives and model drawings to develop a deep conceptual understanding for teachers of the math standards. This targeted focus will continue. Our science proficiency has not increased as much as we would want. It remains stable. In an effort to address this, summer work teams created pre-tests that assess student skills and concept understanding from the previous grade level. This will allow teachers to provide earlier intervention for students who do not enter at grade level understanding and science skills. In addition, teacher teams created lessons to help teachers with difficult concepts. RTI-type lessons, primarily in 8th grade and 9th grade, and lessons to bridge the standards gap in our adopted resource, which is in 4th grade, were worked on. 8th and 9th grade lessons are broken in teacher-delivered lessons and student self-directed lessons in Canvas, our learning management system. Performance tasks will replace written assessments. Performance tasks require students to use science process skills, so they focus on doing science. Roughly 50% of Ames science is based on science skills, so this new focus provides more practice for students in utilizing their science skills and understanding. We will continue with Ames work teams during the school year to add to the bank of lessons to assist teachers in providing foundational science skills on Ames. Teachers will participate in professional learning this year to help them utilize the assessment data to make instructional changes and improve student proficiency. For example, all 8th grade teachers will attend professional development in the fall, which is making sense of science, and it will focus specifically on physics. And physics is a huge standard and area in the 8th grade science classes. ADE also approved our Structured English Immersion, or SEI, model, which added certified and classified staff to increase the amount of instructional time and classroom support our English language learners will receive across each of our schools. Administrator training was also built into the SEI budget to help our principals better understand the unique learning needs for language acquisition of our English language learners. We will continue to teach students content aligned to the Arizona College and Career Ready standards and ensure we are building daily opportunities for all students to think critically and independently and collaboratively. We have identified schools that will receive additional support at the administrative and teacher level from both the Administrative Leadership and Services Department as well as the Curriculum Instruction and Assessment Department. Support will include coaching and professional development. We have worked with and continue to work with all special education math and ELA teachers to build their content knowledge at a conceptual level. In addition, we will be working with the instructional coaches at the schools to ensure support is aligned with district instructional best practices. In addition, we will also work on specific coaching strategies for support staff at schools. We are grateful to be able to provide professional development and support to teachers across all grade levels and content areas during the school year, as well as the summer months. We anticipate continued growth in proficiency rates as teachers and students become more accustomed to AZ Merit and the computer platform. We must support high expectations and high-quality teachers for every classroom to ensure long-term success, both for the individual students in Deer Valley and for our district as a whole. We appreciate you listening to this report.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Mr. Bear.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Galligan, do we have any color printers or copiers or MFB devices in the district office?
Mr. Gregoire, Mr. Bear, I am certain that we do.
Okay. You guys went through a whole lot of information very quickly, so I guess short and sweet would be the word there. But the information that we were given here at the board level to follow along with the video is all in black and white, and it's really hard to determine what's what on a black and white slide of that nature. So in the future when we do these, could you give us color slides to look at? And I would like one of these in color before I leave tonight so I can review this further. Can we do that?
Mr. Gregoire, Mr. Bear, we will make sure you have that.
Thank you.
Okay. Gail, what is the state's time frame as far as actually implementing a standard? I think this is a gimme year as well, isn't it? As far as they're just throwing the test out, is it next year they're going to finally set a baseline and evaluation?
Mr. Gregoire, they've been talking about that at the State Board of Education over the last 6 months and will continue until they settle upon what they want to use. Mary Beth might be able to answer a little bit more, as well as Dr. Smith.
Yes, President Gregoire, members of the board, they have been working with the data from last year as well as the data from this year. They did let us know up front that 2014-15 data and 15-16 would not be used for accountability framework, but they would mock it in such a way. We do anticipate that these results, they say probably about November, that we should have a look at what the accountability framework will encompass and how that looks for districts across the state, whether or not that timeline comes to pass. But it's not just our state. We are under the gun to get this taken care of from a federal standpoint as well. So I would anticipate that we will have some indication by the end of this calendar year in terms of how this looks for the accountability framework.
Okay, great. And last question in lieu of there, since the state hasn't done that, and you did allude to the fact that we don't have comparables with Peoria or Paradise Valley or Chandler or Gilbert. Could we make that, I know it's more work, but it helps to know perspective-wise, at least with our comparable districts, where we stand. And having that perspective tells us whether we're falling behind the ball or not. And even if the state doesn't come up with a solution. So if somebody could gather that information in the next month or so, that would be a wonderful thing. And last thing, you mentioned all this professional, by the way, kudos for all the game planning for improving. I mean, you read off a ton of things, and that's being on the ball, and I appreciate that. The professional development, how's that handled? Is that on a weekend, or teachers pulled out of class? And
President Gregoire, during the school year, professional development can happen on the early release days. It happens during the classroom day too with substitutes. It can happen on a weekend or like a Friday night, Saturday. What we've found is that many of our teachers appreciate that time with their families, and so they prefer not to have classes set or professional development set during that time, but we have offered that in the past. The vast majority of work that we do with teachers and teacher teams occurs in June and into July, and really actually into early August before the school year begins for both curriculum and assessment work and professional development leading into the new school year.
Okay, again, my concern was just time in the classroom, and I know it's a financial issue, but it's always concerning to keep teachers in the classroom. So anyway, thank you. So go ahead, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just one more question I thought of here. On this slide, Azella, it says DVUSD K6 Spring Azella 2016 results. K6. Just a quick question. Desert Sage scored extremely high compared to the other schools. Yeah, is that what it is? It's just, okay. 2 people that blew it out. All right. Because I was looking at that, like, that's incredible. How can they be that much higher? Thank you.
Ms. Fisher.
First, I want to thank you for sorting through all this data, and I do like the way you're presenting it. It is very beneficial to see that growth, because I think a continuous growth model is what we're always looking for. When we talk about professional development, I know I've heard it tossed around in many circles about maybe not paying subs so much during the year and having teachers come back and paying the teachers during those summer months when they're not working. Has that been thought of at all, or has it been considered? Because I know that, well, some teachers have spouses, and they do enjoy those summers off. There's a lot of them who take to waitressing not only during the school year but during the summers, and take summer jobs and are looking for. So if we can not pay a sub and rather bring back our teacher during the summer and do a really comprehensive training and get them ready, has that been thought of or considered?
Mr. Gregoire, Ms. Fisher, definitely. I was going to mention this in one of the upcoming agenda items, but we have had over 700 teachers participate in summer work, including professional development. and they were all paid extra duty for their work. And that's just this calendar year. So if we can get the teachers during the summer, that is definitely when we would like to. Now, again, many of our teachers, especially at the high school level, really take the summer to rejuvenate and be with their families, and don't always like to give up that summer time for professional development or other work. But yes, we utilize as much of the summer months. And in fact, if you were to look at really the 3 weeks before the school year begins, we are packed with professional development at all grade levels and for all content areas for existing teachers, continuing teachers, and new teachers to our district, new teachers to the profession.
I mean, I know we'll have some that just, because I have that too, where I say, I need you to come back during the summer. Oh no, I got my ticket, I'm gone. But the ones that are coming back, do they prefer this model of that summertime? Is it being well received by the teachers overall?
Any teacher who would like to participate in the summer definitely does.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Gail, company. Fiscal and Business Services, Transportation Department report.
President Gregoire, members of the board, Dr. Weinheimer, we've had ongoing conversations regarding our transportation department. So part of our commitment to the board was to bring you information regarding our efforts related to transportation. I wanted to acknowledge that Mr. Ernie Mesa is in the audience. He is our Director of Transportation. Ernie, throw a wave out there just so he's also referenced in the presentation itself. Just to give you some idea of the department itself, over 238 employees in our transportation department. We drive over 2 million miles with our bus fleet. That's 1.9 million route miles. Those are to and from school, and over 200,000 miles of non-route miles, athletic trips, field trips, things of that nature. 71 routes for 8,000 eligible students. In our general routes, 58 specialized routes for 560 students, and then 25 homeless students, what we call families in transition, transporting 94 students. So it just gives you an idea of the magnitude. It is, I believe, one of the largest departments in the district. One of the reasons we're having this conversation goes back to the Auditor General Performance Audit from 2004-2005. In which they noted some inefficiencies within our department. In addition to the performance audit, we've also had the Auditor General produces the now called District Spending Report on an annual basis. And it provides some measurements or metrics, if you will, regarding several of our departments, including transportation. Back from the performance audit, there were a couple of things that were cited here. That one of the things that needed to be considered was the fact that our transportation services encompass a larger area than our comparable districts, with our district being 367 square miles, and that we had some challenges as a result of that, and they've identified some inefficiencies with our ridership counts. Those things we have been working on and wanted to share some of those results as we move through the presentation itself. The metrics that are included in the classroom, the district spending report, used to be referred to as the classroom spending report, but now referred to as the district spending report that the Auditor General publishes each year, identifies the cost per mile and cost per rider. So Deer Valley on the top there from 2011-12 through 2014-15, the latest report that they've published, and then our comparable district averages there below. Again, with the footnote that some of those comparable districts are much smaller, much more concentrated populations, which makes the routing much different than what we have to contend with. You'll notice that one thing that was identified in this latest report from the Auditor General is our cost per rider. We've made some significant improvements comparing 2013-14 to 14-15, and now that number at $11.75 is comparable within the peer groups, which is a different subset of the comparable district. The comparable districts, again, are districts that are that we like to compare ourselves to, that are large K-12 districts in Maricopa County that serve kindergarten through 12th grade students. So just an idea of some of the things that we've been working on prior to 2015-16. So we did commission a study. Dr. Skip Brown is a renowned, I'll call him an expert. He speaks around the world regarding student transportation. He was the former director of transportation for the Paradise Valley School District. We commissioned his expertise to help us develop some ways to capture ridership and other specific inefficiencies that were noted in the performance audit. And we continue to use some of the work that he created as a result of that effort to be able to monitor especially ridership. It was noted in the performance audit that we had what we call deadhead miles as a result of, again, the geographic size of our district. So in 2011, we completed the construction of our Northern Services Center up off 7th Avenue and Carefree Highway, and we now have a portion of the fleet that gets stationed out of that satellite office, if you will. We have increased student ridership. I think it was noted on the performance audit that our high school ridership was very low. Mr. Mesa was kind enough to share with me that ridership is up to 91% on our high school routes in this last year that just completed, last school year. We've developed a limited bus replacement schedule. One of the challenges that we have is we suspended any bus purchases, and that has added to some maintenance costs, maintaining an older fleet. And we are just in the beginning stages of that replacement schedule. And thanks to this, the efforts from this governing board, we're going to infuse some additional buses as a result of the decisions that were made regarding the Prop 123 money from fiscal year 16. We've included some other ways of gaining some efficiencies with, we used to do video monitoring on VHS tapes. That is now, for the most part, digitized. I can't say completely. We're still working on that to say that we have 100% digital video recording, but that helps from a safety and security standpoint for our students and staff. And then finally, we've been coordinating bell times and start schedules to be able to gain as much efficiency as possible. For this year, 15-16, we have some new key transportation staff, including a new director. That has made some significant differences in terms of just a new set of eyes to look at the situation that we're contending with. We've accelerated, as I mentioned, the bus replacement with the infusion of $1 million of the Prop 123 funds from fiscal year 16. We're continuing to evaluate the white fleet replacement because we also have maintenance costs associated with an aging white fleet. The white fleet would be all the vehicles that aren't used as school buses. So includes micro buses that we have at the high schools, vans, as well as those vehicles that our departments use to service the schools and departments. We've assigned a van to the Northern Services Center to help with travel to the main yard, which is at 51st Avenue and just south of Union Hills Road. We continue to purchase camera systems to work towards a complete digital system, and we're reallocating the white fleet maintenance and fuel expenses to the departments and schools. One of the things that we found is we were looking at comparing those costs per miles amongst not only our comparable districts, but what the Auditor General was doing with their efforts, is that the white fleet was not being charged in any of those other districts to the pupil transportation costs for the district. So we have found that is one of the things that is causing us to look like we are more inefficient than we actually are. So we're projecting a cost per mile. We still have a couple days left in this fiscal year. So we're projecting about 2.2 million miles that we'll be driving. So that's the denominator that the Auditor General will be using. We have just over $9 million worth of direct expenses, so that would be a $4.11 cost per mile. Again, this is very preliminary. We have information on the chargebacks that should be charged to the actual departments and the schools of just under $400,000. So you can see that reallocation of expense, making a lot of assumptions, would be somewhere close to 18 cents of the cost per mile that we have been charged to pupil transportation, that those districts that we're comparing ourselves to have not been charged in that same capacity. They've been charged to the various departments itself. So this will be new for 2015-16. We'll be able to get more, we'll be able to have this information validated as we prepare our annual financial report in October. It won't be until February when the Auditor General publishes the district spending report for the fiscal year 16, the 2015-16 school year, that will know for sure not only what impact this has on our district, but how that will be relative to our comparable and peer districts. So future areas of focus, we're going to look at evaluating special education routes and how we can gain some efficiencies there. We also do some private transportation services to get students to and from various locations. We'll continue to review routes and riderships for efficiencies. That's reviewed at least annually, if not twice a year. Downsizing the bus fleet by minimizing, as we're able to purchase more buses, we need fewer spare buses because there's more dependability with the newer fleet, and then therefore we won't have as many buses to maintain. So we'll be downsizing the fleet as we work through that replacement schedule, obviously continuing the bus replacements. We'll be evaluating and implementing the transportation of the McKinney-Vento or the families in transition students to see if we can do that with 14-passenger microbirds in lieu of a full-size bus. And then evaluating staffing of the Northern Services Center, which was included in the efficiency study, to have a full-time mechanic there to eliminate the need to have a bus relocated from that satellite facility down to the main yard to have any service. So we would do light repairs and preventative maintenance, oil changes and whatnot at the Northern Services Center, reducing the need to transport buses to and from those two offices, so, or those two areas that we house those in. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that we have.
Anyone have questions, comments? Go ahead, Ms. Fisher.
On the measurement, your transportation measurements and metrics slide, for the 14-15, your cost per mile increased, but your cost per rider decreased. And you did say that we were up in ridership. Is it significant enough to make that much of a difference? Or why is it, it's kind of disparate?
President Gregoire, Ms. Fisher, yes. So our ridership has improved. I don't remember exactly. I think we consolidated maybe 8 routes as a result of trying to gain efficiencies to increase ridership accounts, and you can see it had a significant impact in terms of the cost per rider.
So it really is that increase in the riders and the rerouting combined that made this type of a change? Because I mean, your route per mile is just based on economy and what the overall, but if you have more kids on the bus, their percent goes down. So
correct. So we just have more. The buses are more full.
Okay.
You know, there are more students riding on
Has
each bus.
we had any complaints that there's a negative impact to our students at all, or our parents are we getting positive feedback that they're fine with that? Are we hearing anything about overcrowded buses, anything of that nature?
I'm looking over for some sort of some sort of indication. I don't know that we've seen any. I have not personally heard of any complaints as a result of the capacities of the buses. I don't know if Mr. Mesa has something he can add.
That is correct. The complaint has been minimized.
Ernie, could you step up to the microphone? I'm sorry.
Ms. Fisher, to answer your question, the complaint, is that what you were asking about?
Well, I just want to know because for us to get this result, we have to have increased ridership, and then we've reduced our routes, So, and that's a great thing because we needed to be more mindful of our expenses. But is there in any way a negative impact towards our students? Have we gotten complaints that there's maybe too many kids on a bus? Have we had an increase in bullying instances? Or is there a financial cost for having to hire additional aides? Is there any other side of that we need to be aware of?
Not that I can think of at this moment,
Okay.
to increase efficiency and that matter. I mean,
So you haven't received additional complaints or anything of that nature, too crowded buses or anything?
no,
Okay.
not other than the standard everyday
Yeah.
things that happen on a bus.
Okay.
Yes. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Jim, just a refresher. We get reimbursed from the state for a certain amount of money. Is that based on per rider or per mile?
President Gregoire, that's based on the number of eligible rider miles we travel in a year. So how many eligible students are on eligible routes?
Okay. And the other question, you quoted in the final projected cost per mile to 3.93, which is tremendous improvement, by the way. What does that project per rider? Or did you do that number? 'Cause you
President Gregoire, I did not do that number. The intention of this wouldn't be necessary to predict a $3.93 cost per mile as a result of the Auditor General report, because there's going to be some encumbrances in here that they're going to. We have some additional expenses. Not just through the last several days. This report was compiled over a week ago. But we also have during the encumbrance period all the way through the August that we'll have some additional expenses. The intent here was to show that the difference in the expense per mile could be as high as 18 cents. So if it was $4.18 cost per mile, we would reduce that down to $4. So this is intended to show what the difference would be by charging back to the schools and departments, not to indicate that we think we will be under $4 per mile.
No,
when the
it's in
report
writing. You got to do it. I'm sorry. We have witnesses here.
Yeah, I know.
So, and Ernie, I have a question for you, and maybe Jim. With the new buses, hopefully that'll help. But is there talk of selling off some of the boneyard buses, or how does that? How do we do that?
President Gregoire, we actually have had a conversation about that. We got a bid on the last or the next series of buses that we're purchasing for them to be traded in, so we know what the trade-in value is. I'll just say that we thought that we might be able to do a little better by trying to dispose of those in another way. There are prescribed ways that we can sell assets of the district. And so we're going to consider that because we not only do we have, again, as we intend to downsize the fleet, we not only have a one-for-one for each bus that we're buying, but we might want to get rid of some additional buses. And so we would need to do that through one of the prescribed methods. And some of those buses have some value to them. We think more so than just the scrap value that we might get for trading them in.
Okay.
Just don't forget that little clause that says that if there's a better way to do it that will benefit the district, we just write it up and we can do it.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bear.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Miglerino, just a quick question. In the Auditor General's report there, they noted that the district employed 48% more drivers and 57% more bus aides than comparable districts. How are we doing on that?
President Gregoire, Mr. Bear, as we've improved ridership and collapsed routes, we've been able to also reduce some of the staff within the department itself.
So if you had to guess, where would we be at in that same comparison today?
I wouldn't be able to hazard a guess at a number. I could just say it would be less than the number that was presented in the 2004 5-year.
How much less?
I wouldn't say, we didn't cut it. We didn't cut it in half. I wouldn't go that far, but I think we've made a significant change from the 2004-2005 year. But that, just as a reminder, that's true across the district. Remember, we were in the process of doing all of those things that we didn't like doing as we were trying to balance our budget as the state imposed reductions were so the transportation department was not immune from participating in that as all the departments had to.
Yeah, but the transportation department was in a deep, deep hole not too long ago.
Right. And hence the report this evening
Okay.
is to keep you updated.
Thank you, and thank you, Ernie. Well, great job, everybody in there. Okay, staffing update, human resources.
Coming up. There we go. Good evening, President Gregoire, governing board members, and Dr. V. Tonight, I am pleased to present to you the June update for our staffing for the 16-17 school year. In similar format, you'll see in front of you our K-6 posted positions. I have added a comparison to my last report. So you'll see K-3 positions have moved from the last report to 6. 4 through 6, we have 3 vacancies. In special education, those cut in half to 3 vacancies. And specialized staff moved up to 11. Some variables to consider when looking at this slide. We do add certain positions at this point in the year that were not previously posted in our last report, such as in May. Title plans are finalized and people begin to post some of those positions, and that's specific to what you'll see in the specialized staff. We have added some positions there. FTE movement from May, we were sitting at 24.9 and we are currently sitting with 18.7 FTE in our K-6 world. K-8 posted positions, 1 to 2. In 4 through 6th grades, we've moved from 1 to 3. In grades 7 and 8, we've maintained at 3, and all of those 3 vacancies are math at our K-8 middle schools. In special education, we've moved from 7 down to 4, and in our specialized staff, we've moved from 11 to 10. The difference in FTE for K-8 when this report was put together was 20.3 to 19 FTE. However, today we did.
Can you refresh us what specialized staff is again?
In the K-8 world, that could include counseling or support staff such as reading specialists or RTIB positions at title schools. And we did fill an additional 3 vacancies this afternoon, so that FTE has decreased down to 16 from the 19 that was reported earlier. Middle school posted positions. In 7 through 8, we have moved from 5 to 3 vacancies. Special education has maintained at 4. Those are all located, I believe, at Deer Valley Middle School right now. And our exploratory support positions have moved from 1 to 2, and that is because we have added. And we are sitting with 6.9 FTE as of this morning, but we also filled another vacancy here, so we've moved down in our FTE. High school posted positions. I'll go back to that slide.
The top part is your positions, but some of these are not full-time equivalent. They
That's
can't
exactly
be
right.
because some of them are.
That's exactly right.
Doesn't mathematically add up.
That is exactly right. And you're going to see that very clearly in the high school slide.
Okay, because I was just getting stressed out thinking, wait a minute, this is Common Core math because this doesn't add up.
No.
Just kidding.
You're exactly right. So if you look at high school, for example, many of our high schools will begin in the summertime to break their positions into smaller parts. They're able to find someone to hold a 1.0, and they might have a little bit of FTE left over, and they decide that they want to post as 0.4, 0.2. So you're going to see more vacancies come up.
Good, now I'm much more relieved now.
And typically, sometime in July, you'll see those vacancies come down. So in math and science area, we are now sitting with 5 posted vacancies. In history and ELA, we have 3. Special education, we're down to 1 vacancy only. And in foreign language and any support staff listed here, example, counselors are in here again. We have moved from 13.8 to 13.4 FTE, so not too much movement. It's more movement in staff than it is movement in FTE. So again, the explanation of the 1.0 broken into parts is what you see with high school staffing. For comparison purposes, we can now track from year to year. We're now moving into that month where we began tracking last year. You'll see in the certified staffing year of 15-16, at this point last year, we had 60.2 FTE. And currently that says we have 58.7, but with the vacancies we have filled this afternoon, we have 55.5. You'll see two different color apples there, and that is because I do want to remind you of some variables. We're comparing apples to apples, but things do happen that make this not a direct comparison. So if you remember for the 14-15 school year, we were planning for the 15-16, and we added an entire new campus, Sonoran Foothills. We also added special education positions, which changed the comparison. In this case, we have variables such as added positions due to enrollment, title positions being posted, resignations that that are submitted past the last day of school, and to date, or as of the end of last week, we had 13 teacher resignations that have, some have been approved, others have not, teachers wishing to break their contracts. And other variables such as our TOA positions, we've had teachers move up into those TOA positions or into assistant principal positions, and those have now vacated teacher positions, so we have to post those. On the classified side, you'll see that down below. Last year, the 15-16 staffing school year, we sat with 61.3 FTE, and currently we have 79.24 FTE. And one of the variables to consider with classified is that we started the para staffing cycle much later this school year than we did the previous school year, so those vacancies are sitting there, and they would not have been sitting there last year. A couple of celebrations. In my last report, I shared with you the two numbers specific to our newly hired teacher employees. Human Resources was closely tracking and working with this group, and we celebrated a change of resignation rate with this group of 51.5%. So we celebrated that. But we didn't share with you that we were also tracking our bus driver group, our newly hired bus driver group, because in our classified world, this is a group that turns over quite often. And so Michelle and team would like to celebrate that they decreased that rate. The change was 49.7%. Points of interest, things coming up. Transportation, our very first transportation job fair is going to be tomorrow at the Transportation Department, and we thank Monica and team because they have supported us in advertising this event, and we're eager to see how that goes, and thank you to Ernie as well for all of his preparation for that event. We also have our first annual, we're going to go ahead and declare it an annual event, classified job fair, and that will be July 14th, 2016. And then efforts continue on the certified side. We still are using social media, and Monica's preparing another social media campaign for us. Also, job boards, we continue to update those. We're also utilizing recruitment.com and find that it has been very helpful to us as it sends information out to job boards, and that is our highest way to recruit, as evidenced by our surveys from our candidates. And we are also proactively sourcing feet on the street. We are working with our principals every week, looking at vacancies and trying to gather as many candidates that we can for their consideration. And I'll take questions.
Any questions, comments? Of course, I always have Jenna. Actually, I have none. You've gotten better each time, and I love the comparisons. So thank you for recognizing it and doing the great job you're doing. So, Mr. Bear.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a couple questions on the celebrations.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's great that those are down. Almost ever since I've been on the board, so probably at least the last 10 years, we have been asking for information, why are we losing employees? Are you compiling a report that you can give to the board at some point so we know what the factors are that in the past caused this to be worse than it is now?
Yes, President Gregoire and Mr. Bear, we are actually putting a report together that shows reasons for resignation. We collect that throughout the year, and we now have varied areas where we can collect reasons for leaving. Some of them are anonymous exit surveys, for example. We collect that information, and so that can't be directly aligned with an employee, but it is, I think, a valuable point of information because perhaps they feel more able to be candid in their responses as to why they are resigning. But we also ask every employee that leaves to complete a resignation that includes why they're leaving, and we also ask them to declare the reason why they're leaving, and we categorize that. So we can provide that information to you.
Do you have exit interviews for all employees that are leaving?
We have exit surveys for all employees.
Not exit interviews.
Not exit interviews for all employees.
That's something you're working on.
With our employee relation, the addition of our employee relations department, I would say that we have increased the number of actual interviews that we have held. I can't tell you that we are working on a plan to add that as well, to include every resignation to meet with us. We have not chosen to do that yet.
And when could we expect this report? Soon or?
Yeah, very soon. I think we worked on it this morning again, and I think at least to this point, hopefully we won't continue to collect any resignations this summer, but to this point we can provide that data to you, yes.
Okay. Then I have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to Jim's presentation on the transportation department, if we're overstaffed there, I guess we are, right?
Overstaffed?
No, not in the least.
Not now?
Are you asking in reference to our celebration for, okay. That group, we were just tracking the newly hired bus drivers. Our percentage change in the resignation rate of newly hired. It doesn't mean that we didn't lose more veteran bus drivers, or we still lost newly hired bus drivers, so we're still hiring.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no other comments, thank you, Jenna. Okay, item 6F, data analysis, parent and community satisfaction survey. Batter up, Scott.
Thank you, President Gregoire. President Gregoire and members of the governing board, it's my pleasure to present kind of a very high-level report on the parent and community satisfaction survey that we took in 2000, or we administered in 2016. I will preface this report that it's my goal to make this the fastest report I've ever given you, so be careful with those questions. No. Just real quickly, this survey is the same survey that we've given previous years, but slightly modified through the work of kind of discussions with Cabinet and input from Cabinet, and about the number of responses that we've received in the past. We kind of went down a path of that we saw in research also, that the response rates are directly related to the length of your survey and how much time people expect to have to spend on it. So we shortened the survey length with the intent of improving response rates, but we did add one question, which was the Net Promoter Score. This survey was launched on April 19th. We launched it traditionally for a 3-week window. Usually the window stays open slightly longer than that, so I can squeeze out the last couple of responses during that last couple of days. But it's an electronic access to the survey with the help of Monica Allred and the schools. We put this on the district website, school websites, and had communication out to our parents and community. This is a high-level kind of look at the responses. We had 2,300 responses this year. That's up almost double the 1,235 responses we had the year before, but still dismally low, in my opinion. We'll continue to work on that response number and have to get creative somehow. You see two pie charts there, 2015 on the right, 16 on the left, which show how parents grade our schools. I literally ask them, what grade would you give your child's school, A, B, C, D, or F? and you can see a slight bump from 2015 to 2016. I'll just remind you, if you remember back in the 2014 survey, we also asked this question. The combination of A's and B's was 68% in 2014, and like 38% A's. You see the combination in 2015 going to 78%, and then 2016 go 79%. So it's a big bump year over year last year. We see a slight improvement in that bump this year. This is the school-specific questions we ask on the survey, and you can read the dimensions there over there on the left. It includes the grade again, but also several other questions. On this section, we had 3 of the dimensions that we've asked consistently year over year go up, and 1 dimension slightly drop, which it's an important dimension, so we have to pay important attention to it. Is that 3rd one from the bottom, my child is physically safe with his or her school. Still higher than 14, but we don't want to see that drop, so something we want to keep our eyes on. We did add 2, although we took away several questions, we did add 2 questions to this section, primarily to align to our strategic plan and some of the key strategic objectives we have. So we have baseline data for the level of customer service, the perception of customer service in the front office, and the perception of the value of professional development days, which aligns directly with some of the comments we got. So I think it's a good add, and we'll have to see how we move that year over year. The section on the district office and the board is somewhat of a different story. Here you can see that 6 of the 7 dimensions that we have year-over-year data on dropped for both the district office and the governing board. We will take this information as a cabinet and probably encourage the board on the board question to take it and review it for our goals, and as a cabinet see if this needs to be fit into our district improvement plan or where it fits in our district improvement plan more specifically. And then see we added 1 question on the district using money effectively, trying to get again to one of our key strategic objectives in our strategic plan. And we added the Net Promoter Score. If you remember when I presented the employee satisfaction survey, we also added a Net Promoter Score. I called that the Employee Net Promoter Score. This is specific to ask him, would you recommend your friend or a colleague to your school, the school that the parent is talking about? And you can see that overall for the district, that's a 19, and you can see it by school type, high school, middle, K8, K6. I would probably give I'm not going to go into detail about Net Promoter Score with you again as I did when we did employees. I'll just start with this is a baseline for us, which is what the literature says. Start with your baseline. Don't put a value judgment on that baseline, but figure out how you're going to improve it, how you're going to satisfy your parents and community so that next year that promoter score improves. We have some additional reports coming, just like I mentioned on the AZ Merit reports. There are interactive spreadsheet report out on the portal, my portal page, which allows you to compare your school year over year and your school to other schools. Executive Cabinet has already spent some time with comments. Of course, every school has their own specific comments. Executive Cabinet spent some time going through the comments and kind of developing themes very similar to what was mentioned by Ms. Fisher. Some of our themes are common, some of them not so common, but those might make a great discussion as we move forward. In terms of action planning, we will use this information in our CIPs and DIPs. We will systematically look at this data again in our admin conference later in July. And we will, I personally, and we as a cabinet, will continue to investigate alternatives for improving responses and kind of getting a better view of what our parents and community say. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. Bear.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to give you a compliment. Great presentation, and our copy's actually in color, so it makes it much easier to utilize. So thank you very much for that. So keep it up with giving us color charts like that so we can actually understand them. Thank you.
Just a quick comment. Scott, thank you. Everything was perfect here. Kim, going forward, and again, as the cabinet's going to take their information to heart, I think as a board we need to take ours. Could it be possible for you to reach back and find the employee survey as well as this one and put it together? So when we have set our board goals in the next month or two, we have those because I think those are good standards and possible goals as a board to weigh ourselves off of. Go ahead, Ms. Fisher.
The one thing that I want to comment is, and I see this is common of every district, is the silos. It's wonderful that the schools talk about it. It's wonderful that cabinet locks themselves behind closed doors and talks about it. It's wonderful that the board sits together and talks about it. If all three don't join together, improvement can't happen. We're not three separate entities. We need to become a team, and I think we need to make more effort to work as a team. And we need to definitely work towards the public being part of that. They need to be able to see what it is we're doing, and get those discussions out there, because I think there's a significant misunderstanding about what we as a district do, and what it will help us to pull them in. If they see us working together, they'll want to be here versus, I don't want to get into that mess because they can't even work together. So that's my one feedback, is I think rather than the silos, we need to work together.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, let's move on. Finally, old business, item 7A, approve the 2016-17 classroom site fund plan. Mr. Bear.
Thank you, Mr. President. So on item 7A, I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the classroom site fund plan for 2016-17.
Do you have a second? Second. With that, do we have any comments?
Discussion. Yep.
Discussion. Actually, I do. I'm going to step right in here. And this plan really hasn't changed much since years and years ago. And I would ask the superintendent and that it's a little late in the game right now to address this because we're presented with the end of the year. But going in the fall, that we have a serious discussion about how this, specifically Fund 13, is spent from this classroom site fund. There's been a lot of push, a lot of questions, a lot of saying other districts do it a different way. And I think the way we spend our money needs to be questioned and justified. Right now, it's a little late in the game to do this. So, but those are my comments. But I would ask the superintendent if we could, going forward, would have a discussion about it. So, Mrs. Fisher. It's not presented here, but we have additional information about what's in here, and I did express to Dr. V some of my concerns that we have the ELL teachers that were first on the requirements list, and now they're in here again in that Fund 13. I want to make sure that. And I know you can fund teachers out of here. However, it's very specific that these are for teacher increases, teacher pay, but they're for interventions. The Mandarin program, Spanish program, these programs are not interventions. And I'm concerned, which I've also expressed, about some of the interventions that are maybe not being funded as well. How is it that we are funding the language teachers from here, and is this really an appropriate place for them to be coming out of? Because even if it's late in the game, we can't just misspend money because it's late in the game. Are the interventions that need to be paid for being paid for? We have a lot of students. As we saw from our results, we are doing very good, but we still have a lot of students that are very far behind. And I would like to know, first, are all the expenditures in here really appropriate from this fund? And are we meeting what we need to for interventions before we go to boutique programs? Jim, can you answer that, please?
President Gregoire, Ms. Fisher, yes, we have reviewed and have provided to the board the list of those things that are included within the menu monies of Fund 13. And one of those is what we call assessment interventions, or what we used to refer to as AIMS interventions. I think we listed it here still, just a carryover, if you will, from the past. We have reviewed the information regarding the test scores for the assessments for those students in the Mandarin program, and feel that it is appropriate that the additional positions, the 3 additional FTE to support those positions in the language programs that we offer, is providing an intervention to improve the test scores for those students.
Would the Auditor General agree that Mandarin, which is a boutique program, is an intervention when we have students who can't read?
President Gregoire, Ms. Fisher, we have not consulted the Auditor General regarding that.
I just don't see how we in good conscience can fund specialty programs. I think they're wonderful programs. I think anytime a student learns a foreign language, anytime a student has opportunity to learn anything, it's wonderful. I really do. But I really think that there's very specifics with the Classroom Site Fund, and I disagree that the Auditor General would find that a boutique program is an intervention. I think he's going to see it exactly as it is, I just can't support those specific that specific program or that type of a specific program being funded from the Classroom Site Fund.
Okay. Any other comments, Mr. Bear?
Thank you, Mr. Gregoire. I also have some concerns about this evening. In my board book that I received until I got here this evening, it said requested board action, no action. This evening when I got here, I got an amended one because apparently there was a mistake where if there is a vote by the board, that kind of bothers me, quite frankly, and to also pick up on some of the things that Ms. Fisher talked about. I have some concerns about how this money is being spent, and it is my opinion that we should table this until we can have a study session to look into this a little deeper before we vote on this.
Okay.
So that's what I would say, and I'd like to make a motion to table if we could do that.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Okay, the table's removed. Let me finish. Mr. Bear, and Ms. Fisher, I do agree with some of your concerns, but I don't think necessarily the board's the best qualified to review some of those things. I think there's a lot of stakeholders that need to get involved in that decision as well, and that's why I'd like to see it thoroughly reviewed and not just nitpicked right now.
I'd like to say that's what we're requesting, is that it be thoroughly reviewed before we make a vote. I don't think Mr. Bear or myself are asking that we don't do it, just that we ensure that what we're doing is appropriate and legal.
And again,
and you're correct. I believe that would take stakeholders other than just us. But I think the positions I'm speaking of have been moved from pot of money to pot of money to pot of money, and I don't think that just putting them here because they're not as obviously seen is the best place. I do agree that it's important that we fund these programs. I just want to ensure that it will withstand any legal questioning or any audit finding. That is my concern. And I'm not sure whether we seek an opinion to get that or if there's additional research. I did not have time to do the research. Had I had the time, I would have. But summer months are my busy months as well, and I just haven't had the time.
Okay. Ms. Zorba.
Mr. Miglerino, funding the programs, and saying boutique programs kind of takes the seriousness away from a Mandarin program. Have we funded it this way before, and have we made sure that this is legal, or do you have any idea? Do you take that seriously when we put things under funds and finance them?
President Gregoire, Ms. Ordway, several questions there. I don't recall that we've ever funded any of our language programs with the Classroom Site Fund. We have certainly funded some teaching positions over the years that the Classroom Site Fund has been available. We have not sought any legal advice regarding what we're recommending, nor have, as I mentioned earlier, have we consulted with the Auditor General regarding this. We're basing our determination on the test results of those students that are in our language programs.
Thank you.
Are those students in the programs students that we need to have interventions for? Or from what I understand is and I don't believe saying it's a boutique program. It is a specialty or boutique program. It is very beneficial and it's wonderful, but it's not an intervention program. And I think that's my concern, is that when we start saying, you know, my concern is I don't want to pass a decision. I won't pass a decision with an unknown that potentially could be a significant finding for the district, because I think that's our responsibility. And I'm just asking that we table it long enough to get that answer, even if we just call Heinfeld and Meach and say, what do you think? Would this pass muster? Because like when I met with Dr. V and we talked, like he said, whether we fund it from here or we fund it from somewhere, we have to fund it because he needs those teachers. I get that. I just want to make sure and know that we are not making a decision on we think it's going to work or we think it's going to pass muster. I want to make a decision based on a known rather than a assumption.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would concur with Ms. Fisher on this. I also have some concerns that, you know, when we did the Prop 123 money, that the district did not get the requirements.
We got to stay on this topic, Mr.
Okay.
Can I just make a motion that we just table it long enough to get that answer?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those against? Nay. Okay, let me make a motion then. I'm going to amend the current motion, but exclude those positions for now, and then we'll bring it up at the next meeting once we get a definitive answer.
Okay.
So we will line item that particular thing and
Those three positions.
Those three positions and approve
Or
the rest.
four.
So
Well, how many positions are there?
Is it
and
3 or
what's-
is it 4
and
language positions?
Kim, can I speak? And what are the positions called? And how many are there?
President Gregoire, Ms. Ordway, we added a total of 4 FTE. One is a special education mentor, and we have 3 positions that we labeled as language teachers, world language teachers.
the mentor, I think, was fine. It's just the foreign language, I think, was what was in question. So specifically, my motion would be oh, Mrs. O'Brien, go ahead. Okay, we lost you. Okay, we're gonna need that vote. Because we're at a 2-3, 3-2 kind of a situation here. Let's see if we can't get her back. Okay, let's just, for now, I made the motion. Do I have a second?
Make the complete motion.
I made a motion. Do we have a second?
We have to get rid of the first motion.
No, this is amending the first motion.
No, we already did. Didn't we vote on it?
No,
No?
we
Okay.
So we're
own,
going to make an amendment, we're going to second it.
the original motion you pointed out is on the table. I'm amending it to line item those 3 positions. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we're gonna call, do we have Ann back, please? Okay. Okay, Ann, we just had a motion and the second for the line item.
Of the members that had voted for that changed their mind because there was some either new information or they hadn't clearly understood that. So there is a possibility that we could pass the motion as is and ask administration to seek the information that Mrs. Fisher and Mr. Bear are seeking, and were it to be, not good, information that would need us to change our mind, that we could bring it back up for a vote at the next meeting. Because it just, as I recall, the policy says within 30 days.
I don't believe that's an accurate policy.
Okay, she's said her piece. The motion, we have a second. Any other comments? I'm trying to keep us on task here. With that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? All those.
Can you repeat the motion, Mike?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ann. Basically, it's the original motion Mr. Bear made, plus with an amended item saying we're gonna line item those 3 positions until we can get a legal clarification on those 3 positions.
Okay, and that's what the motion was. And the
That's,
second
yeah,
is?
that's the motion on the floor. So are you aye or a nay?
A vote, aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay, we have 5-0, aye. So we'll line item it and bring it back, those 3 positions at our next meeting.
Thank
Okay, let's move on to consent. We got a lot of policies to approve here. Item C, 7C. Let's see if we can't run through these.
And Mr. Gregoire, just as a point of reference, there have been no adjustments, no changes, no anything to everything that happened during the preview.
Okay, Mr. Bear, let's start reading off these motions and see if we can't run through these.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. I would make a motion that the governing board conduct a second reading and accepting the administration's recommendation to adopt revised policy BEC, executive sessions / open meetings.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay,
Aye.
pass. Next one.
Next item. This is 7C2. I move that the governing board conduct a special reading and accept the administration's recommendation to adopt revised policy BEDA, notification of board meetings.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 5-0.
Okay. Item 7C3. I move that the governing board conduct a second reading and accept the administration's recommendation to adopt revised policy BEDH, public participation at board meetings.
All those in favor say aye.
Discussion on this one.
Okay.
Aye.
We're just letting Mr. Bear speak. Go ahead, Ron.
Okay. On BEDH, some things that were lined out of this were questions of fact asked by the public shall, when appropriate, be answered by the president or referred to the superintendent for reply. Another thing that was lined out in this one was members of the public may be recognized by the president to assist the board with information for the conduct of its official business. I have some problems with taking those two items out of there. It seems like that is restricting the public's right to communicate with the board.
Just a point of clarification for this, Ron. I'm not sure if this will help. If it won't, you can tell me to shut up. But the part of us responding, I believe, is in open meeting law, and I think that's why they removed it from here, because we can't respond to them. Now, the one part I don't know if we can. I believe somewhere in here it still says that we can. Questions regarding investigation shall be referred to the superintendent. So we can still refer them to him, but I think it's in the law that we cannot respond to them when they talk to us in open meeting law.
That is true, and you also state that in the part that you read right before the public comments.
All right, so we're not moving, by approving this, we're not moving to restrict the public's right to communicate with us.
No, and you give clearer direction whenever you give the oral reading right before.
Okay.
Okay. With that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 5-0. Let's move.
All right, the next one is item 7C4. I move that the governing board conduct a special reading and accept the administration's recommendation to accept or to adopt revised policy GCQF, discipline, suspension, and dismissal of professional staff members.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 And just for clarification, it was a second reading and not a special reading. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Next, 7C5. I move that the governing board conduct a second reading and accept the administration's recommendation to adopt revised policy JFAB, tuition/admission of non-resident students.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Item 7C6. I move that the governing board conduct a second reading and accept the administration's recommendation to adopt revised policy JK, student discipline.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 5-0.
Item number 7C7. I move that the governing board conduct a second reading and accept the administration's recommendation to adopt policy JLDB, restraint and seclusion.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
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 5-0.
Item 7C8. I move that the governing board conduct a second reading and accept the administration's recommendation to adopt revised policy KF, community use of schools.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
5-0.
Okay, item 7C9. I move that the governing board conduct a second reading and accept the administration's recommendation to adopt revised policy KHC.
Second.
Sorry, dash distribution/posting of promotional materials.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're done with those. Consent agenda.
Okay.
8A.
Oh, wait a minute, where is it here?
In your book.
It's in the book.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. All right. Mr. President, I move that the governing board, under the consent agenda, approve items 8A through 8K.
Do I have
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
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 9A, approve human resource changes. We're moving now.
Okay. Mr. President, I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the human resources changes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any conversation? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any nays?
Nay.
4-1. Item 9B, approve the advertising of the proposed 2016-17 budget.
All right. Mr. President, I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the advertising of the fiscal year 2016-17 proposed expenditure budget.
Do I have a second? Any conversation? Questions? Jim?
President Gregoire, members of the board, Dr. Weitenheimer, in the interest of time, I'll try and be brief because we'll have another opportunity to look at this at the next meeting. So just in terms of process, I wanted to recognize the board's effort with the study sessions and all the input as we've worked through compiling all the information related with the budget, and certainly the negotiation solution team and other input that we've received. What we're talking about now is we've had a lot of conversations regarding the 16-17 budget over the last several months. This is the culminating activity, which ends up with the proposed budget developing the framework for us, and which we're considering this evening, followed by the adoption of the actual budget, which we are considering for July 12th, the next regularly scheduled meeting. Wanted to recognize Mr. Dale Splitberger. I think he might still be with us this evening, and for his efforts, as well as Ms. Mock, who couldn't be here tonight for her efforts helping and assisting putting together the budget. As we have talked about over several years, we have three financial priorities for the district. Those included a salary increase for all employees, restoring some capital funding for the district, and addressing our structural deficit. And this budget addresses all three of those things. A $5.2 million pledge of salary increases for all of our employees as a result of the M&O override, an additional $4.6 million of Proposition 123 assigned to salary increases. The net result is a average certified increase of 6.4%, average classified increase of 7.9%, and the average administrative or exempt position increase of 2.7%. Percentages can be a little bit deceiving. The classified increase there, obviously, as a result of a smaller base. Our classified employees earn less annually than either the certified and or exempt positions. We're restoring capital funding, $3 million in continuing capital budget. That is a result of the commitment we made with the M&O override passing. And we have additional funds as a result of Prop 123 that we're going to be using for capital needs in the district. Again, you'll see later in the presentation, the capital funding that's in the state formula has and will continue to be cut as we move forward. We have a sustainable cash account plan now at $1.7 million, and we'll get into that in a little more detail. Just some highlights of the proposed book. We have provided the gold book in the board packet as the detail of some of the M&O budget, and as previously mentioned, the M&O override increasing from 10 to 15% thanks to our voters approving that back in November of 2015. We had an inflationary increase added to M&O of just under 1%. I think it's important to note that in the March budget projection that we did, we were projecting inflation at 1.5%, the best information we had at that time. It actually came up considerably less than that at just under 1%. That difference alone is about $750,000 in terms of from a planning standpoint. Current year funding provisions, so that we have to look forward to. You can read some sarcasm into that as we plan for next year. Teacher Experience Index went down a fairly significant amount, $1.2 million. We still enjoy a little over $2 million worth of Teacher Experience Index. Our teacher experience is greater than the state average, so that's a positive thing, but it also is relative to the state average, and the state average went up. Our average went down, and so we had a net result of a $1.2 million reduction. The budget that we present to you this evening does include the Prop 123 funding. We are projecting carry forward, as we mentioned during the last board meeting, of $8 million. A big portion of that is Prop 123 funding, and that is a result of the plan that we've approved that will spend those dollars in the early part of next year. So you can see how that breaks down. Staffing is based on a projected student enrollment of just 0.6%. We are projecting to grow again, but it somewhat muted from what we've seen when we were growing much more rapidly back in, let's say, the early to mid 2000, so 2004, 2005, those years. We've kept the class size standards the same, so those did not alter. We've identified those there. Again, the district additional assistance or the capital funding in the state formula, a $13.5 million cut. So we gained $6.7 million with the Prop 123 funds. We actually cut $13.5 million, and that will add to our cumulative total as we continue to keep track of that since the 2008-2009 year. Again, the continued use of our cash accounts to help balance the budget, but we have a much more sustainable number at $1.7 million, 1.2 of that coming, or 1.25 of that coming from our 5 cash accounts, and that's supplemented by the athletic participation fee that was approved by the board a year ago, and the parking fee increase. The proposed budget does not include an administrative recommendation for employee reclassifications and additions. I'll get into that into some detail on the next slides, but just wanted you to know the net result is the general budget limit increases from $185 million in the 15-16 year to just over $201 million for 16-17. We initially started to get a little bit excited about breaking through the $200 million threshold, but realized a good portion of that has to do with the carry forward, the provision of the Prop 123. So we won't have a sustainable $200 million budget at this point yet. There's a list of reclassifications and additions, and I've kind of identified these into 3 different categories. The positions that are listed here, I know this is very difficult to see. These have no direct impact on our M&O budget, so they're funded from either reallocation of discretionary funds that are assigned to a department and or they're funded from one of the special revenue accounts we call our cash accounts that for these reclassifications. So there's no, again, direct impact to the M&O budget. We have a group of reclassifications and additions that we refer to as process-driven, just under $50,000 for these positions that are either part of our apprentice program through our facilities department or a program that we have coined as the change of designation program for our technology folks. The number of change of designation and apprentice programs changes from year to year, or varies from year to year, and I will note that we have an unusually high number of change of designations for this year, at 8 positions being requested to be reclassified. And then finally, we had a category that I just called others. Some of those are related to the exempt salary requirement that we'll talk about later in the board agenda. Some of them as a result of the efficiency study. So the total cost for M&O, that includes salary and benefits in these projected costs, is just under $145,000. So the proposed budget does not include these additions. And I'm going to pause right here just to get some input and feedback from the board, because it is our recommendation to include those in the adopted budget when we bring these back on July 12th, when we bring that back for the board's consideration on July 12th.
Okay, Ms. Fisher.
Okay. You know, I look at this and I am very concerned because we see a few numbers on here. I did some backwards engineering into finding the salary increases and what these were, and I did email with you and and I understand the going from 12 months to 10 months to 12 months and looking at the increase. It's my understanding to meet within that exempt salary requirement, we need to be at level 4 for exempt, correct?
President Gregoire, Ms. Fisher, would have to be at the revised range 4.
The revised range 4?
Correct, which is for later consideration on the board agenda. So it's not.
Okay. So at when I look at this, these increases range from 2% to 28% at a time when we are not able to provide that kind of increase in other areas. And I'm assuming that is above and beyond what we've provided in the current increases, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So it's even more significant than that. I don't want to dig deeply into too many comments here, simply because I don't think we have enough information. If we have things that are being reclassified, I would like to see the old job description, the new job description, and see what that entails. Does that truly warrant that type of an increase? When we look at, let's just take what's on the screen. We have going from a 3 to a 5. Okay, I understand going from a 10-month to a 12-month, that's automatically going to increase the income based on their working 2 more months. However, to meet the exempt salary requirement, we need to put them from a 3 to a 4. Why are we jumping to a 5? If that happens to be because there's job duties that have changed, I think we should have that information. I am not comfortable with saying that we're just going to make that type of a jump. And even when we're looking at the reorg within their own budget, we have buckets. We all know we have buckets, and not all those buckets are M&O. Now, I understand that community ed is self-sustaining, and some of those may be a factor, but the one facility rental clerk is the one that is a 28% increase. So what duties changed? And I just think to make a responsible decision, you know, we have to see, because there is times. I've been in positions where you are at this level and you're working at this level. And if that change needs to happen, then you look at those job descriptions and you look at what changed to justify that kind of a jump. But to just make that kind of a jump because it's within their current budget, I'm not comfortable with that. And to make, I don't want to say absolutely not never, because if there's justification and real reason, you know, we need to know that we're appropriately paying our staff. We are not going to hire an accounting clerk, keep them as an accounting clerk, and make them work as if they were the CFO. So I understand that occurs, but I don't believe, I personally, other board members may feel differently, but I personally do not feel with just this chart I have adequate information to make an informed decision on this.
Okay, can I cut to the chase here? Jim, can you give us some more background information on this for consideration next week?
Complete.
Yep. So, yeah. So, okay. But these recommendations are not on the table tonight, so we're going to call the vote for the proposed advertising of the budget. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ann? O'Brien?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye, sorry.
Okay. Item 9C, to consider and deemed advisable, adopt a resolution authorizing sale of tax anticipation notes by the district. Can I have a motion?
Make the motion.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to consider, and if deemed advisable, adopt a resolution authorizing the sale of tax anticipation notes on behalf of the district.
Second.
Okay. Jim, is there any? Okay. Is there a presentation or just?
President Gregoire, no, just in the interest of time, this is a annual event for us to manage the cash flow for the district. Just note that there is a increase. We are asking the board to consider this is the passage of the resolution that's being considered for $35 million worth of tax anticipation notes. We sold $30 million worth of tax anticipation notes a year ago. One of the reasons why is because of our plans with Prop 123 to pay the longevity payment and some of those things early in the year, we need a little more funds to be able to make sure that we have enough money to afford those things.
Okay. With that, this is a roll call vote, so I'm going to ask each board member to vote one at a time. Starting with you, Mrs. O'Brien? Yes.
Aye.
Yay or nay?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Bear?
Yay.
Mrs. Fisher?
Aye.
Mrs. Ordway?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
See?
9D. Mr. Bear, can you make?
Up on 9D here.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that this is item 9D, that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to revise the exempt salary schedule to comply with the new Department of Labor salary requirement for exempt positions effective July 1, 2016.
Second.
Okay, let me get a, Kendra, I know you wanted to speak, and this is the only item that comes close to what you want to speak about. So did you want to speak now? Okay. Let's let her speak now. So can somebody read the?
Where is
It's in
the
your
thing
book,
here? On the back.
Oh, okay, there you go. Kendra, just a moment. Go ahead, Mr. Bear.
Thank you, Mr. President. Patrons are encouraged to address school officials at the earliest opportunity. That's not the right one here. All right, thank you. All right, the board invites public comment on the district's business in general. Yeah. On the district's business in general and on any agenda item in specific. All speakers must observe the rules of decorum. Speakers must fill out a card listing their name, address, and topic and hand it to the board secretary prior to the president calling the meeting to order. Speakers must make their comments in no more than 3 minutes. If necessary to accommodate all speakers within the 30-minute overall limit, the board president may shorten each speaker's time. Constructive criticism is in order. Rudeness, vulgarity, disruptive conduct, or remarks disrespecting personal dignity are not in order and will not be allowed. Under the Arizona Open Meeting Law, the governing board cannot discuss or act on any items not listed on the agenda. Board members may respond to criticism made by a speaker, ask staff to review the matter, or ask that a matter be put on a future agenda.
Anyway, I know Kendra's comments are not specifically on this, but I want to ask the board for some leeway. It's been a long meeting, and she needs to. We can't keep people waiting. Go ahead, Kendra.
Appreciate it. I promise I won't go over 3 minutes. President Gregoire and the board, my name's Kendra Burringrud. I am the speech therapist at Anthem and Boulder Creek. And I did come here last board meeting to speak, so I appreciate the opportunity to speak. And I'm here really on behalf of my speech therapy group and other veteran staff from Student Support Services. Last meeting, we talked about Prop 123, and then the new contracts came out. Besides a snafu from Human Resources, because several contracts came without our addendums. That's okay. They're clearing it up. They're working on it. It is apparent. So with the Prop 123, many people still were excluded from a raise. And the $500 move from our addendum to our base, and I do appreciate Mr. Miglorino spent time with us explaining why that is to our benefit in the long term. It was already money we already were getting out of our contracts. So, it's unfortunate that some of us didn't benefit from Prop 123. I have every reason to believe we'll get longevity payments, so that is in our benefit, that is. But really when we're looking at, I think there needs to either be better communication for some of us who are excluded from any raise at all with the Prop 123. I think that looking forward in the district's strategic plan for employee retention, the fact that many of our veteran staff, especially in student support services, because we are addendum heavy group, that not getting a raise, I don't think that sent the right message. Now, granted, I understand that we got raises for various factors, which was nice to come to the board meeting. I learned a lot last time. So I think just moving forward, we need to have better communication about why, or a better explanation, like as Mr. Miglorino and the salary inequities were made. But just for the fact of employee retention and morale and understanding of what we're trying to do with money, budgets, props that come through, I think we need to have better information, because I think it kind of sets some people off, and I wouldn't want to lose great experienced staff based on something like this. So that's all.
Thank you very much. And unfortunately, we can't comment since that specifically is not on the agenda, but we can talk later.
We can comment, but
I know we can't comment, but Jim, can we ask for some sort of a report to give us an idea of, because we have had a lot of comments about outliers or, individuals who maybe didn't get a raise because it was moved over. Can we at some point get a report on not necessarily everybody, but those outliers? Is that possible?
Have a conversation later. We're off the topic and we need to stay on the exempt employee change. Okay. Jim, are we going over this?
President Gregoire, we can go over this quickly. I think it's just kind of what our plan is going to be for the exempt employee changes. As was mentioned in the motion, this is a requirement that's brought about by the Department of Labor, changing the salary requirement for exempt employees. We've reviewed this, and exempt ranges 1 through 3 would need to be converted to hourly positions as opposed to exempt positions as a result of this change. Our recommendation is for those to be changed to classified range 34 from range 1 and 2. The reason that there's 2 different ranges amongst the exempt schedule is they were annualized amounts because they were exempt employees, and they're 2 different calendars. One was a 10-month employee and one was a 12-month employee. In the positions, not the employees, excuse me. So some positions were 10-month positions in range 1. Other positions were 12-month positions in range 2. That's why we can collapse both of those exempt ranges into one classified range, range 34. Range 3 would become classified range 36, and we would have to increase range 4 to the new threshold of $47,476, which is what the Department of Labor is going to mandate is necessary for a salary to be exempt as of December 1st, 2016. As a result of this, no employee loses any wages. In fact, those employees in ranges 1 through 3 will actually see a slight salary increase because the exempt admin group got a flat $1,900 increase. The classified group got a 2.5% plus a $1,200 flat increase. The 2.5% as a result of the Prop 123 passage. So those folks will see a slight increase. Anybody that made over $28,000 a year, nobody will lose money. We did note at the bottom there, additional future changes may be necessary, and I'll show you that on the next slide here quickly. Again, the exempt salary schedule will change as a result of the action that we're having you consider this evening. So range 1, 2, and 3 will be eliminated. That's why they're struck. Range 4 would be edited to be able to be compliant with the Department of Labor rule at $47,476. You'll note, though, there is very little separation between range 4 and range 5. And we need to reevaluate those ranges moving forward. And we had previously talked when we did the efficiency study about doing a compensation comparison, and I think that would be a great time for us to look at other changes that may need to be done as a result. So what I've been telling folks that we have encountered is this would allow us to become compliant with this new rule, and then we need to consider additional or other changes that may need to be required as a result of this moving forward. I'd be happy to answer any of the questions.
Any questions, any comments? Seeing none. Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, item 10. Aye, Carrie Ann. Last is 1617 extracurricular tax credit and fee authorization. Preview item.
President Gregoire, members of the board, Dr. Weinheimer, very little changes to the extracurricular tax credits with the exception of one change in which was statutorily provided, in which the law now has changed from you must have a fee to you may have a fee. So we have made that conforming change, but we've also listed those fees that are that are known to us at the schools on the actual schedule itself, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions, comments? Seeing none, hearing none. Future meetings are posted. No other public comment? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. We are adjourned.
Aye.